So today I'm going to talk about deeply accepting your sensitivity. And everything I say on this channel is from my own experience of something that I have transformed or alchemized. And I work with a lot of people who come to me with an almost violent rejection of their sensitivity. And I just wanted to offer what I found helpful and the insights that I had that helped me embrace it so that I could live in this world as myself, as being an extraordinarily sensitive being, allowing myself to feel pain at a deeper level than maybe some people, but on the other side, also being really highly attuned to the bliss and ecstasy of the universe. So I want to start this conversation by saying that what I've noticed about people who would identify as a sensitive being, they generally define their sensitivity as being a negative thing, even though people are kind of talking a lot about empathy and being an empath. There's still always an energy or a connotation that it's a negative thing. And in fact, people very often suffer greatly because they violently reject their sensitivity. So many people that I've worked with, they believe that their sensitivity is a handicap, and so they punish themselves severely, whether in the form of addiction, eating disorders, just horrible self-criticism, with blaming the fact that maybe their life isn't where they want to be on their sensitivity. And the list goes on and on in the ways that shows up in the personality, just the deep, deep, deep hatred of the sensitivity. And this is connected to an archetypal wound that we are healing as a collective, the wound of the rejection of the feminine aspect of God, which part of it includes our sensitivity to energy, our sensitivity to our emotions themselves, our attunement to the environment, our sensitivity to change. All of this has been demonized in a way, and there's countless examples of how that has played out throughout history. I mean, women were murdered and still are murdered for things that men do every day. Being publicly aligned with nature, whether you were a witch, using herbs and nature to heal people's bodies, or a channel or an oracle. There's been so many points in history where this kind of archetype has been brutally attacked. So we have, all of us, every human, man, woman, and non-binary human being, has within them this wound, because we are one minefield. We are one in our fundamental consciousness. We are one in the minefield. We are one as nature, and we're all experiencing this wound on some level, and the way that it manifests in the personality might vary and have its own iteration from person to person. But the way that it manifests, right, it's kind of like this deep resentment that you feel so strongly. Because on some level, there's a thought, a conclusion, that it's because of my sensitivity that my life is going wrong. It's because of my sensitivity that my health is failing. And it's not your sensitivity that's causing any problems. It's your judgment of your sensitivity that's causing a problem. So we have to get to the root cause of this kind of domino issue. And the root cause is the belief that my sensitivity is dangerous. And it's understandable why we would believe this, not only from our childhoods, being acoustically aware and very sensitized to vibration. If you grow up in a violent or explosive environment, or even just in a loud city, or in a city experiencing war, or even in a home where something is going on behind the scenes that is psychically loud to you as a sensitive being, right? I have friends who grew up in South America where, pretty hardcore, difficult stuff was going on in their home that involved the dealing of drugs and the violence involved with that. And although nobody said it out loud, they only figured it out years later, but they knew that there was just some energy in the environment that felt very uncomfortable. If you know, as a child, if you call a spade and you're told over and over that what is real isn't real, right? Some people call that gaslighting. Then you can become psychotic, because, you know, if you're constantly told that what is real for you isn't real, then you have no ground to stand on, and you become chronically unstable. And your experience of being an empath is that you are literally whipped around by your environment like a dandelion. You just blow and sway around like a completely helpless being that's at the whim of the environment. So I want to teach you how to transmute that, because let me tell you, these beliefs that I had about myself, the self-hatred that I had, it really did a number on me, on my health. But what I was going to say as well is, in addition to your own childhood, just the growing up in this archetypal fabric of the brutalization of femininity, right? Even there's today in this world, there's some places in the world where a man who identifies as a homosexual man can be beheaded by his own parents. I mean, this is real, and it's happening to us all, because if it's happening to one person, it's happening to every person. So it's felt at a deep level. And so of course it makes sense that on some level we conclude like, well, being anything other than what is defined as appropriate or strong or what will equate to survival for me is dangerous. Being feminine, or feminine not even in the sense of female in terms of gender, but in terms of the aspects of the divine that are feminine, which are sensation, which are intuition, which are the emotional body, right? The strength of our emotions. We just a short time ago, women were treated with shock therapy and labeled as having hysteria for having anger. And I've said so many times that the suppression of anger it's like a cancer. In fact, it causes cancer in the body, but it's like a cancer in spirituality sometimes. If we, you know, and we have to be careful with terms like sacred rage, because yes, in nature there are volcanoes. The divine mother is ferocious, right? If you harm her child, she will kill you. Kali will kill your ego because she loves you. And so there's a ferocity to the divine feminine. However, you know, we can always take a concept and use it to feed our emotional addictions, right? If we're addicted to rage, then you can use what I'm saying and continue your addiction. But you have to have the intuitive awareness to know the difference between what's healthy and what we need to stop repressing versus what we need to stop projecting, right? We have to find that within ourselves, and that's a process sometimes. But the rejection of ourselves as emotional beings, even, I mean, it's remarkable to me that when I talk to most people, they're completely unaware of what they feel. And that is actually even more so sometimes with quote unquote empaths. People who define themselves, who identify as highly sensitive people, are often the people that are the most unaware of their emotions, because they have disassociated from their body because of their sensitivity, which is very understandable, and they become hypervigilant to the environment. So they're actually more aware of their environment than they are aware of what's going on within their bodies. So one of the things that could really help you get back into your body, where you could start actually doing alchemy, is just contemplate this idea that I accept that I am sensitive. That's it. I deeply accept that I am sensitive. I deeply accept that the way I feel emotions it's in a very powerful way. You know, sometimes an emotion is so powerful that it alters my physiological chemistry, and that's okay. Sometimes I get really hot, that's okay. Sometimes the depression that I feel brings me to my knees, and that's okay. reclaiming your intuition. Sometimes I just know things about situations that nothing in my environment will validate, and I have to accept that it's okay for me to be my own authority, even if nothing in my environment validates me. That reclaiming yourself as your own authority is how we as individuals exit the era of really external authority as it is portrayed in exoteric religion. And esoteric spirituality, of course, it's always been the path of the heart. It's always included the feminine. But our mind field has been dominated by ideas of, that we're driven by achievement and success because we only have one life to get it perfect. And so if we don't do everything, if we're not perfect human beings in this life, then we should be utterly ashamed of ourselves. If we, people that aren't even raised in religious households have deep shame about their sexuality, and they don't even know it. They might even identify as an open-minded individual, but when it comes to their own genitals, they can't even look at them in the mirror. Why? This is part of the religious conditioning of our mind field. And so, as I said, we're all healing this wound in our own way. And it's a really thick one. The rejection of the feminine. The rejection of the feminine is the rejection of intuition, of the emotional body itself, of the ecstasy of the flesh, of ferocity. And as I said, the rejection of any of those things, it leads to madness. The rejection of intuition gives you nothing to stand on, because if you intuitively feel that the external world isn't your authority, but you can't trust yourself, do you see what a tumbling whirlwind you're stuck in? And so I always tell people that are trying to stabilize themselves back into their intuition to just trust what you hear or know or feel, and don't even worry about being right, because it's the trust muscle itself that you want to build. It's not about being right. It's about being settled, about being able to make a decision that feels right to you and just being at peace with it, no matter what the outcome is. And if the outcome isn't what you wanted it to be, that's not a reason for you to shame yourself or doubt your intuition. You should be happy that you trusted yourself. That's a win. In terms of the emotional body, right, we are in an epidemic of escape with distraction, with social media, with thinking, right? We spend and waste a lot of energy avoiding what we feel. And if you're a sensitive person, which really we all are, it's actually the people that appear to be the most numb who are probably the most sensitive, ironically. But if you just made a decision, right, start with the mind. I make a decision that to the best of my ability, I'll just try to feel what I actually feel. Even if that's rage, even if that's numbness, even if that's confusion. And confusion, what that literally feels like in the body, it might feel like it might feel like you have no inner stability. And underneath confusion is usually fear, is usually terror, right? Okay, so let's say you actually do feel terrified about something. Okay, let yourself feel terrified. Let yourself feel terrified by really dying to and just surrendering into a feeling. It will change, because what you stop escaping changes by itself. It changes by itself. The universe is not neutral. The universe is love. The universe is love. And everything that's happening through you is the universe trying to give you what you want, which is ultimately God realization and freedom and peace and ecstasy. And in order for you to actually rest in that, you have to be able to sit with your internal storms. How are you ever going to sit with an internal storm if you've been conditioned to believe that emotions are evil, that intense energy is dangerous? That's where you have to start with the mind. Intense energy is just intense energy. It's not dangerous. Even if it alters your heartbeat and it makes you sweat, I guarantee you can sit through it and it will change by itself. And that is proof that the universe is love. Because all you had to do was stop fidgeting around and stop trying to run away from it. And it changes. It changes you. It opens your heart. It makes you stronger. It puts you back in your natural state of your realization of your eternal nature. Because when you're in the realization of your eternal nature, you can allow sensations to come and go. You don't need to spend your entire life trying to avoid them. But why do we avoid them? Because we're trained to believe that they're dangerous, that our emotional beingness is somehow the reason why everything goes wrong in our lives. And ironically, although some people successfully subdue their emotions, other people become really highly erratic in their emotions, because depending on their constitution, the emotional energy is so intense, like a wild beast, that they can't control. So they'll have periods of control, and then the emotional body will explode or will go into extremes, because it starts in the mind that my emotions are wrong, right? So we have to start with, on every level, my sensitivity is beautiful. And even if you can't get there, just accepting it. I am sensitive. I feel my environment intensely, and that's okay. I feel people's psychic energy intensely, and that's okay. And you know, what you might find is that instead of feeling discombobulated and like your guts are in a blender when you're around others, you'll start to realize that what was actually distorting your experience was your judgment of your sensitivity and not the other person's energy. Because when you're not judging your own sensitivity, you can just feel something, right? You can feel something, but you at the same time feel your heart. And so the heart just gently dissipates the experience for you. If you don't reject your sensitivity, you could be around a person who's in a murderous rage. And if you don't tense against it, if you don't reject your sensitivity to it, if you don't judge yourself for being so open, then you'll just experience it as a hot or as a uncomfortable energy in your belly, and it will dissipate. And so that's how you become stable again. It begins with the acceptance of sensitivity. The acceptance of your appearance. The acceptance of everything, really. But the acceptance of your physical body. Give yourself 1 month where you don't try to change anything. And I talk a lot about tuning into frequencies and being in creation mode. And that's not possible unless you first accept things about yourself that you intensely and violently reject. And I just am telling you that what I see so across the board is that people intensely reject and hate their sensitivity. So just step 1, just accept that you are sensitive. And in a very short amount of time, you'll just automatically begin to embrace it. You will feel that the whole universe is your body, and that, one of the best ways to meditate is to feel the whole universe as your body, and to allow every sound in your environment to just gently move you, whether it's a motorcycle, whether it's an airplane, whether it's people fighting outside. If you don't try to change it or judge it or move it or reject it at all, it just becomes part of the acoustic orchestra of reality, and it's actually blissful. So I hope that I've communicated something helpful. I deeply feel for anybody struggling with this, because I violently opposed my own self for so long, because I am extraordinarily sensitive. And I put myself in very deep addiction and harm of myself for very many years. And I realized that really what it all came down to was that I wasn't accepting myself. And part of the way that I wasn't accepting myself is accepting my amazing sensitivity, which I absolutely love now. So I share antidotes from my life because I know they must apply to others. And I hope that this has been helpful. And I hope you have a beautiful day.